A very good morning to you, Africa. Saturday, the 7th of June, 2025. And we are back again here on Wake Up Africa to look onto anything, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa this morning, that speaks of Africa, Mother Africa. This is the only continent, my dear viewer, this is the only continent where Africans call home. You can't be on earth anywhere besides in Africa where you can say home, where you can say Mama continent. This is Mama Africa. This is Mama continent. And we're delighted this morning, my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa, as we bring this show that is going to focus on the role that African media has to reshape the narrative of Africa. You all know from the onset, the main objective of Wake Up Africa is really to rewrite Africa's narrative. And why are we rewriting Africa's narrative? The world out there, and I recall visiting one of the countries, one of the eastern countries, where I was telling them, hey, I'm from, we're having a conversation, and they're like, where are you from? I was like, I'm from Tanzania. They're like, where's Tanzania? I was like, in East Africa. Oh, Africa, like, yes, Africa, but particularly in East Africa. And they're like, East Africa. And then they would mention all other places, all but Tanzania. I was like, no, 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 no. Tanzania. Then I started telling them, do you know the Maasai? Probably this is why I'm wearing what I'm wearing today, because I'm celebrating Africa, this beautiful, rich continent. Do you know the Maasai? They're like, yeah, they jump high and keep cattle like yes. So they are found in my country. They're like, okay, where is this? Kenya? I was like, no, 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 no. Close. So Tanzania borders Kenya in the south. Do you know where Mount Kilimanjaro is? Then they had no idea. I think I was just mixing with a very wrong crowd. Then they're like, no, so I was like, this is the world's standalone highest peak. World's standalone highest peak. They're like, I don't think Himalayas. Is like, so Himalayas are the mountain ranges. The world's number one standalone peak, the highest in the world, is Mount Kilimanjaro, and Mount Kilimanjaro is found in Tanzania. So I had to, take them all through this and that for them to just get a gist. They knew of Zanzibar, which was so beautiful, very beautiful. So United Republic of Tanzania comprises of Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar, and this is where Wake Up Africa comes from today. And as we celebrate Africa, Mama Africa, and this, again, as I said, is depicted on the way I'm dressing up today. I wonder how many African media channels out there celebrate their cultures in Africa. First, as we tell our stories, as we narrate our stories, how many African media speak of Africa in its beauty, in its, when you come to Africa, this is where you find trees, lakes, that nature. I've been to a couple of beaches abroad, and I don't shy away. There was a time I visited one of the European countries, and I was taken to the beach. And before we set off, everyone was so excited. Yeah, we're going to the beach. You're gonna have so much fun. I think it was probably one of the worst days of my life, because I couldn't tell my friends and my host who were there that we do not have stony beaches in Africa. No, I've never seen one. So where we step on sand in Africa, they step on stones. How weird that was for me. For the first time, I went onto a beach in Europe. Stones. I even had an idea, probably this is a man-made beach. It's not a natural beach as we have them in Africa. Africa is beautiful. If you've never been to Africa, if you've never been to Africa, then you ought to visit Africa. And my dear viewer of Wake Up Africa this morning, before we start this show, as we're looking onto the role of African media in rewriting, in reshaping the narratives of the African continent, I passionately want to really emphasize on how beautiful Mama Africa is. Okay? how beautiful this continent is. So we're looking onto the role of media. And I want to speak to the media owners. I want to speak to the editors. I want to speak to the journalists. I want to speak to the producers, those who go out there to record radio programs, TV programs. How much of your content is dedicated to promoting Africa? Sometimes we feel like when we broadcast, the touristic attraction of Africa, we are doing the job for the maybe the ministries of natural resources or the ministries of tourism, etc., etc. But no, it is your job and my job, and I'll tell you why. When you attract a tourist to Africa, not only that it's another source of income for the continent, but it's also source of foreign revenue, source of foreign currency. And the world trade is still in dollars. So we need the dollars because looking onto the exchange rate, if we want to buy goods from abroad, which we all attest that we do, from food to oils to, we buy fertilizers, we buy, you name it. We import stuff that like regrettably could be, produced in Africa. So when we trade with any other country, we do not then have to use a lot of our local currencies first to exchange for a dollar and then do trade. You see? So we need to attract tourists. By attracting tourism, it's not as a media owner, as a media producer, as a media, journalist or you name it, editor. Dedicate ample time of your airtime on your media channel or media platform to really promote the continent, Mama Africa. This is for you. This is for me. This is for generation to come. Okay, let them come see how beautiful this continent is. And besides, this is how Wake Up Africa is designed from the onset to really tell the beauty of Africa. And when Wake Up Africa is really looking and taking shape, this is our 6th month ever since we started production with 1 or 2 shows missed. But when we really take shape, my studio is coming soon. We will basically be dedicating some time to speak about beautiful attractions all across Africa. Africa is just beautiful. And when my colleagues join me from Kenya, from Uganda, from Rwanda, from Burundi, it's going to dedicate one session to basically speak of how beautiful their particular countries are. When we visit these African countries, what is it that you can see? When you come to Tanzania, the highest standalone mountain in the world, Mount Kilimanjaro. And be it the highest mountain, this is not the only thing that I really am truly proud of. Probably the only peak you can summit, and comfortably. I've been to that peak twice and I'm like mesmerized every time I go there. And I want to bring as many friends as possible. We go and hike Mount Kilimanjaro. Probably look onto November on my birthday. We go celebrate it at the top of the mountain. Let me bring it up like that. But that's not for Wake Up Africa today. Wake Up Africa today is now looking onto media platforms. Wake Up Africa being one of them, and all the media platforms across Africa. What is it that we have to play to rewrite Africa's narrative? You can't expect the Western media to speak it for us. You can never ever. My late president John Joseph Pombe Magufuli used to say, you cannot have someone from outside to come and tell your story, someone from outside to come and, solve your issues. So it is upon you, media owner, my fellow media owners. I'm a platform owner, podcast Wake Up Africa Live, and speaking to my fellow media owners that it is our sole responsibility as we educate, as we inform, as we entertain, need to speak about Africa's beauty, and this is now the topic for today. What media in Africa has to do to reshape the narrative of Africa? I will be later on during the program I will be joined by two wonderful people. One is Deodatus Babile from Tanzania. Deodatus Babile is the president of Eastern Africa Editors Society, also the chairman for Tanzania Editors Forum, but I'll also be joined by a gentleman called Derek Ford Desire of NBS Uganda. These are fantastic people that I will have on the show today. And with them, my usual co-producers of Wake Up Africa, Alan Subi from Uganda, Patricia Ndede from Kenya, Anna Maneno from South Sudan. I celebrate you, young girl. You know, Elliot from Burundi, advocate Elliot from Burundi. Thank you for your dedication. Remy from Uganda. I look so much forward to hearing from you. Aminata Traore from Arusha, Tanzania. Looking so much to hearing from you. Then we have Mr. Talks from Nigeria. Comes in and out, but delighted to have him. Time difference. You know, when we start doing recorded, these are live shows. When we start doing recorded podcasts, you'll be seeing a lot of Mr. Talks because in Nigeria now it's like 5 a.m. in the morning. And it's a struggle for such a young, energetic person to really be up at 5. But it's the dedication that we put for our continent. So, yes, Talk, put up your socks. Then we have Collins all the way from South Africa. Always appreciated you coming in after the show, an hour ahead of you in East Africa. But you always have to say one or two things. Now, next time, say them before the show so at least I get to air them afterwards. So, this is Wake Up Africa. I celebrate Noreen in the US of A, the first ever and still co-producer of Wake Up Africa. Thank you so much for your dedication. Wake Up Africa is where it is today. Noreen, thank you so much for your input. And when you can join, I'm sure coming from Maasai land, how I'm dressed up today, you'll also be able to give us one or two things about the Maasai. I'm a Sukuma man, one of the tribes here in Tanzania. We have over 120 tribes in Tanzania, and Sukuma being the most dominant tribe in Tanzania. And we'll speak about some events that will be happening in Sukuma land towards the end of this month. Fantastic news. I can't wait to share with you all, but that is the topic for another day. Today, we're looking onto media. Today, we're looking onto how we, media owners, how we, media producers, how we, content producers, should also dedicate a minute of the airtime to speaking about beautiful Mama Africa. And it's surprisingly that when we have visitors, and I have had the opportunity to work for the UN, many international organizations that I've worked for, most people, after they finish their work and terms, wish they stayed longer. Some do stay longer. Probably seek citizenship, or they go back and then on when they retire, they come back to Africa, they come back to Tanzania. It's beautiful. So this is us. So other people see the beauty in us that we can't ourselves see. This is sad. So Wake Up Africa today is dedicated to all the media owners, all the content producers like myself to really look onto what shape a crucial role that we have in reshaping the narrative of Africa by countering dominant, often negative stereotypes and promoting more nuanced and positive portrayals of the continent and its people. Don't we have stories to tell? Don't we have beauty to really pass out for the world to see? Do we still let other continents see us as what they think we are? You know, some even think we live in caves. Some even think there are no roads, there are no houses, there are no, schools, hospitals, airports. How did you get here? Did you come by ship? No, I came walking on the water. You know, of course I flew in. This shift in narrative is important for several reasons, including influencing perception of Africa within and outside the continent, fostering investments. Yes, one of the people that I really celebrate, and I've again to celebrate my dear viewers, Beatrice Makani and Jolene Mtawa. Thank you so much. Because not only that you watch this program and all other viewers across the continent, you take time to really say, I think this topic is crucial for Africa to discuss. I think this topic is important for Africa to know. So I truly value and thank you for your contribution. So, as again, the shift in narrative is important. Why is it important? For several reasons, to influence perception of Africa within and outside. But again, we foster investments. They can't come. So I was celebrating one of the videos that was shared to me recently by my friend and viewer of Wake Up Africa, biggest fan, Jolene Talo, one of the podcasts done in Dubai. And this gentleman, a real estate guru, I would say, has inspired me so much because he's investing in real estate, and as we speak right now, he's investing big time in Zanzibar. So if he had not known Zanzibar from the onset, and I wonder, people that come to Africa then go out there, they're the ones who speak massively about Africa. So this gentleman is investing heavily in Zanzibar, Tanzania, because he's been here, because he's seen Zanzibar, because he's loved it. And here he is. Okay. And when I meet this guy, I'll have a word with him and have him come to my podcast one of these days. So we influence, we foster investment, but most importantly, promote a more accurate understanding of the continent's diverse and experiences. We are put in a box, a tiny box. So this is Africa. This is Africa, and this is how much. So this is Africa. This is how much they know about Africa. Okay, so we are put in a box. So here's how African media can rewrite Africa's narrative. Speak about the beauty of Africa. Number one, we ought to challenge the stereotypes. It's just that Wake Up Africa is live, but when I have the full production team in house, then I will have some of the video clips that come onto our, you know, mainstream media from outside, Eastern and Western, that speak about or stereotyping Africa. For decades, we all know that the media has often presented Africa as a continent plagued by poverty, conflict, and corruption, reinforcing stereotypes that overlook its resilience, diversity, and potential. So they overlook Africa's resilience, Africa's diversity, Africa's potential. Okay, so Africa Media is actively working to challenge these narratives by highlighting the positive stories, showcasing Africa's creativity, and promoting diverse perspective. And this is Wake Up Africa. This is why Wake Up Africa brings people from different parts of Africa to really speak about Africa from their end. Sandeka Pacey, good morning and thank you for joining. I will be with you shortly as we look onto the role that Africa Media has. You and I are content producers, and my very first question, as you come into the program shortly Sunday, will be how much of the content you produce, how much of the content you produce really speak of Africa. You will be joining me shortly. Let me just finish a bit of the narratives that I collected over the week, and then I will have you come onto the show. But good morning, and it's always great to have you on Wake Up Africa Live.
Morning, also happy to be here.
Thank you, Sunday. So, another role that we have as content producers, as media in Africa, in promoting positive narratives includes increasingly focusing and showcasing the continent's strength and achievements, highlighting its economic growth, cultural vibrancy, and positive societal changes. I remember one of these days, about a year or so, I had an interaction with my former CEO. And most of some of us, especially this generation, want to catch up to the world by the dawn. Then he said, Austin, take it easy, slow down. When did all these continents that you're speaking of, when you speak of development, gain their independence? When did they start walking on their own? And when they were doing that, they came to Africa, ripped us off. There's actually one of the articles I read during the week that said they exchanged with us mirrors to gold. Okay, they gave us looking mirrors, what they call insanity mirrors. So is it sanity or insanity or something? Insanity mirrors for gold. Okay. What would you do with that? When you break it, it's throw away. But gold, never mind, and diamonds and everything. So do not put yourself there. And I was like, I want to put myself there. I want to compete with developed nations. Why? Because research and development is already there. So we can basically know what it is that they did then to be where they are so that we can bring it up to speed on our land. There's, differences this little. And I said, good luck. And I said, I will do that. And by doing this, Wake Up Africa Live every Saturday morning is really to show that, yes, we can, promoting positive narratives. African media is increasingly and should increasingly focus to showcase the continent's strength, achievements. I'm delighted to say that Tanzania will be launching next 2 weeks the longest bridge in Eastern Africa, probably Eastern Central. I don't know, but I'll find out. I think it's in Eastern Central Africa, probably the entire African continent. The longest bridge will be launched in Tanzania soon. And again, where I come from. So I'm celebrating Africa's achievement. But we also highlight economic growth, okay? Coming from the dust to building our economy in Africa. Okay, cultural vibrancy. We celebrate. Look at the way I'm dressed up today, and this is the dominant Maasai wear. This is how they wear. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But look at the Nigerians. Look at the Ghanaians. Look at all these Ivorians. Look at the way they dress up. Look at the way they dance. Let's celebrate our cuisines, the best food you can ever have in the world. And I tend to be corrected. Look at the Ethiopian dishes, look at the Ethiopian dances. And I'm celebrating Ethiopia as I look forward to being there tomorrow. I'm celebrating Ethiopia because I really look forward to seeing the way they dance. They dance. Look at the way Rwandese dance, like free spirits. It's like looking at the feather flowing freely in the air. Are we not, media producers, content producers, are we not celebrating that, you know? And positive societal changes. There's so much to celebrate about Africa. What about youth and innovation? Look at our youngsters, you know? Once they discover things, the first thing that they do, they go out. And I remember recalling reading or following one of the content producers who said, Africa does not give innovators and young people the opportunities that other countries give. When you speak of the Silicon Valley, where the Silicon Valleys of Africa that can really come with excellent innovative ideas. So what they do is they see that idea, chop it out of Africa, give it all at once, and then take all the credit that yes, this was incubated, blah blah blah, or bought by some rich American guys or some European guys, and then we lose that identity. So we celebrate young people, we celebrate your innovation, but ground it to Mama Africa. Stories about Africa youth entrepreneurs, the artists. Our artists in Africa compete with the global artists. And why is it that they do or they seem to be doing much more better? Their studios are more advanced, but our music, our cultures, super fantastic. Innovators are gaining traction in Africa, showcasing the continent's dynamism and potential. We've attracted many people who come to Africa to invest because of, the young and vibrant, considering and bearing in mind that Africa is the youngest continent. So, influencing perceptions and investments by promoting a more accurate and positive narratives, we, the content producers and Africa media, can influence perception of Africa both within and outside the African continent. This can lead to increased investment, tourism, and international partnerships. And we've seen them come, you know. We are not there yet when it comes to negotiating terms, etc. But yes, we've attracted a lot of international partnership. But we shift investment patterns. Positive portrayals of Africa can encourage foreign investors to see the continent as promising place to invest. Peaceful rather than the risky one, you know. beautiful Africa. And it's interesting that when you watch Western media, Eastern media, all that you see is war in South Sudan. I've visited South Sudan myself. You see war in DR Congo. Now, they don't speak of a specific area, a very specific, tiny little area that is at war. And they don't even tell you why that place is at war. They just tell you so many people have been killed, aid is required, people are fleeing, aid is needed, etc., etc. But they don't tell you why. They don't tell you the initiatives that the African continent is putting towards getting rid of that war. They don't tell you anything else. They just tell you war, 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 hunger, hunger, aid, etc., etc. They don't tell you it's just this tiny little part in that country. Okay, and they don't tell you why. And they can't even tell you some of the foreign soldiers in that land who are reaping the resources from that place. You will never hear that in Western and Eastern media. They don't even tell you how beautiful the other parts of that place is. So it's simple gunshot. In Africa, I tend to keep up with news, African news. I've never heard someone going in a classroom full of children with a gun and shooting everyone down. If there is, then I remain corrected. Never. And this is where, say, no, I want to take my kids abroad, and then their safety and security is at the hand and mercy of God. Of course, Africa's, I was telling my mother yesterday as we were driving down that, God's arms resting place is Africa. This is where God has put his arm. We are so much blessed in Africa. Promoting tourism, so shifting investment patterns so we can encourage foreign investors to see the continent as a promising place to invest rather than the risky one. But by highlighting the beauty and diversity of Africa, media can attract tourists and contribute to economic development of the continent. But again, we need to empower African voices. We need to really look onto the likes of Wake Up Africa. Okay, we need to look onto the likes of Wake Up Africa and be able to tell that support local journalists and journalism. So we need to empower African voices. African media is playing a vital role in empowering African voices by giving them the agency in shaping and reshaping their own narratives. This is what I was saying from the onset, that the media owners in Africa need to really consider putting African continent onto their media. Now, we need to support local journalism. Media organizations are supporting local journalists and storytellers to ensure that African voices are heard and African perspectives are represented. Again, I'm celebrating how I'm dressed up. I do not know if this is how I should be doing Wake Up Africa, but I celebrate how I'm dressing up today. Building capacity. So initiatives are being implemented in building the capacity of African media professionals, enabling them to produce high quality content and challenge dominant narratives. Counter react. Okay, so we counter react. So they speak about this. We also speak about the same place and how beautiful that place is. When they say it's war, we just say, yeah, there are gunshots, a couple of gunshots. When they say death, we say two people have reported to have been killed, etc., etc. Dead aid, then we say, look at how flourishing the streets. And when I visited South Sudan, this is really where I got the picture that the world is a beautiful place to live in. Everyone was scared. Oh, you're going to South Sudan. I even went to another Eastern country during COVID time. I was lucky to visit um, Pakistan, and I never had a single gunshot. And here you go and read in the media that India and Pakistan are at war. So the first thing you'll be like, oh my God, the whole Mumbai is down now, or the whole Pakistan is down now. It's crazy. I would perceive that way. Addressing the challenges despite the progress made. African media also faces challenges, including limited resources, political pressure and competition from foreign media outlets. So we want to compete with foreign media in producing our news. When there's war, that is where we send our media to capture that. Because we want to capture that before, let's say, BBC or before, let's say, CNN or Al Jazeera, etc., etc. It's crucial for African media to be vigilant in addressing bias and stereotypes both within its own reporting and the coverage of foreign media. It is crucial that we are vigilant in addressing bias and stereotypes both within our own reporting and in the coverage of foreign media. We have to be. Promoting media literacy. Efforts are needed to promote media literacy and crucial thinking skills among Africans, enabling them to discern between credible and biased sources of information. We ought to be there and really say, this information is true, this information is not true. It is you and me to do that, and nobody else can do that. So this is Wake Up Africa today. It's 7:32, and I'm happy now to have my dear friend and brother Sunday Kapesi join us and tell us his perspective of the topic today, Africa Media, the role in reshaping the narrative of Africa by countering dominant, often negative stereotypes, and that we need to promote more positive content of the continent and its people. Good morning, Sunday.
Morning, Austin. You look more African than you did last week.
I look so I looked more Jamaican last week.
Uh, Jamaicans are Africans, right?
They are
Let's say, let's
apparently,
say,
yes.
yeah, let's say you look more indigenous.
I look more indigenous, and this is I was just thinking if you picked it up when I was giving the findings that I did for the week, that probably this is how I should be dressed up for Wake Up Africa every other Saturday morning.
I'll challenge you and say, pick a different African or Tanzanian tradition and keep coming back looking differently.
Are you
Because,
able to join me? Are you able to take that challenge with me? So every time I have you on the show, we
yeah,
have a theme for that day.
if you can help towards my clothing budget, yeah. I would be more than happy to represent our content.
Thank you,
You know, you
Sunday.
look,
One
you
of
look
the
amazing.
people, excellent. One of the people Sunday celebrate when it comes to content creation. And not only content creation, relevant content is your Sunday. Now, my question to you is how much of your content, and I want you to speak about your content. I want you to tell us who Sunday is yet again when it comes to content creation. I want to know from what percentage of your content is really dedicated to Africa. I know you tell Africa's story. I know you tell your story. I know you speak about how raising African children, it's beautiful. But here you are, your minutes of fame. Go ahead, Sunday.
Thank you. So, I am a Sunday, as you said, and I focus on mental health advocacy and addiction recovery awareness and support. Why? It's personal to me as a proud recovering addict and somebody who's had mental health challenges. Uh, when I left rehab 3 years ago, I did that in Kenya. I came to Tanzania and I Googled who's been to rehab, who's talking about this stuff, so that I could get guidance on recovery. And AI took me all the way to Kenya, and it started showing me Kenyan speakers, Kenyan institutions. One or two Tanzanian ones popped up, but I didn't see anybody I could relate to from my own country. So I took it as a challenge to say, I'm pretty sure there are people who have been to rehab. I'm pretty sure there are people in Tanzania who have mental health and addiction problems. Let me create my own community, or let me find communities out there. So, to your question on content creation, I decided to start documenting my recovery, my challenges, my ups and downs, and speaking to the African by an African, to whoever is in Africa. So I designed a website that I'm happy to say, Austin, I just relaunched on Thursday. It was getting a new facelift. And the website has what's this? Facilities. I'm developing slowly facilities that I'll be partnering with, both in Kenya and Tanzania, and hopefully beyond. Professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, people with lived experiences. So it's going to be a directory of sorts. But at the same time, I believe in science-based solution and faith-based solution and speaking from an African cultural perspective. So you'll notice that whenever I put content out there, I am talking about the challenges I face from a cultural, financial, personal, economic basis, but I'm also talking about the opportunities we have. In Africa, you know the principle of Ubuntu or the principle of Umoja, which is I am because we are. So in everything that I do, I'm trying to say you need your tribe. You're representing the Maasai tribe right now as a proud Tanzanian. The Maasai have a very long history. They span across East Africa, one of the oldest traditions that have remained as they are. Why shouldn't you dress like that? Proudly at the next event that you're hosting in Pakistan, you know? So I think I like your topic for today because it's about narratives. Who shapes that narrative? I'm a big Liverpool fan, and I'll be the first to admit I need to follow more local football. When I'm in Kenya, I support Gor Mahia, which is one of the big teams here. When I'm in Tanzania, I support Simba. I can definitely support Simba more. And I like what you said in your introduction. When the Western media portray Africa as a problem, we blame them. I think I'm done with the blaming narrative. What are our solutions? And I like what you said. If they say war in Africa, all our content creators should be notified immediately to counter that narrative and go, wait a second, that war is in Darfur. Darfur is in Sudan. Sudan is in Eastern Africa. Africa is this big. So it's high time. I know people are doing it, but we should have a machinery that just activates. I remember during the COVID years, there was somebody who was reporting to a university in New Jersey, in the US, and he was Rwandan, or they were Rwandan. I think there were two kids, and they were refused entry because not during COVID, during one of the Ebola scares in DRC. So what those kids did is they tweeted President Kagame on Twitter, as it was then called, and said, Mr. President, my name is so and so, my name is so and so, I've been refused entry to New Jersey because of COVID, not COVID, Ebola in DRC. And I think it was DRC or West Africa, somewhere not too close to Rwanda. Because even DRC itself, it's a huge country, I think the biggest in the continent. What did President Kagame do? He ordered Europeans and Americans to be quarantined when coming into Rwanda. Me, as a Tanzanian, I felt proud for those Rwandan kids whose president listened to their plea and quarantined any European that was coming in the same way his African citizens were being quarantined. That's more of a political response, but what a statement. And if people picked up on it, it would have been interesting if many other African countries had followed the same protocol and put them on notice. So I feel as African content creators, if there's an organization out there or an association, then we should have an annual general meeting. If there isn't, maybe Wake Up Africa should lead it because then you can see certain Western media when there's a narrative. It's like CNN, BBC, Sky, all of them are talking from the same briefing point. But when you flip it to Africa, it's Tanzania is saying this, Kenya is saying that, and then within Tanzania, the Citizen is saying this, Wananchi is like, Daily News is saying that. Why can't we at least agree that we will speak our truth to the world And like you said, we're opening up the bridge. I think it's the longest bridge in East Africa and probably top five in Africa. It's a lot to be proud of. We should celebrate these wins without ignoring the challenges that we have. Again, to summarize, my content is about addiction support, mental health management, and trying to speak as an African to other Africans. I hope to write a book someday. I've got articles out there. I've got a website now. I've got a live spoken platform. It happened again on Thursday. Hopefully, we do it every 8 weeks. And this is people in recovery or with mental health challenges talking. Again, this is about the narrative, right? And I'll be honest, I reached out to some of the media houses to say, hey, I know I'm in Nairobi. I've got my team in Dar. We have this event coming up. Could you go and cover it? I don't think anyone did. I guess we're that small, but we have potential and we're not discouraged. But when I see some of the content out there that's covered by the news, I think everything is important, but then what is urgent? Or everything is entertaining, so what is important and who determines that? So that's my opening contribution.
Sunday, thank you very much. Thank you so much for your contribution. Absolutely. We'd rather have again, I'm not against, probably because I don't watch, but I'm not against all the Western soap opera that are coming into African media. But, I still say there's still a lot to speak and talk about Africa. The resources are not dedicated so much onto covering the African continent. But we have with us this morning, Sunday, and delighted to bring on to Wake Up Africa Derek Ford Desire of NBS Uganda. Derek Ford, good morning.
Good morning, Austin, and good morning, Africa.
Beautiful. How are you and how is Uganda this morning?
Well, I'm doing fine. I guess the hours are not as ungodly as I pointed out when we had a chat yesterday. But no, I'm doing, yeah, I'm doing all right. Uganda is fairly good. I fear to say Uganda is great because I may be speaking for myself. It's quite a big space that we get to live in. But as far as I'm concerned, it's a good second day of 4 as far as the public holidays go down here in Uganda. We had Eid yesterday. We have Heroes Day on Monday. So the people are really resting this weekend. Yeah.
Fantastic. We are looking on to the role that African media has in reshaping the narratives of Africa as the continent by countering dominant and stereotype and promoting more positive portrayals of the continent and its people of Africa. Before you take on the topic, tell us,
yes,
who is Desire and what is it that you do in Uganda?
So, Desire Derek Ford Mugumisa. I am a media practitioner since about late 2006. So I've been here for quite a while. Then as a teenager, of course, started out early. Along the way, I went into communications. Professionally, I've done some marketing and branding. In there, I've been a television, host for quite a wide range of things. Of course, from youth TV when I joined to music, and then taken a big chunk of my career as a sports reporter and anchor and producer and all of those kinds of things. And now I'm still, of course, in the communication space, but also on the other end, serving in sport and trying to bring this whole media and marketing experience into sport and all of that. But as a person, I am a Ugandan. If I found 2 bags or 2 boxes of tea leaves, one from Uganda and another one from wherever else in the world, my friend from Kenya, and all of those, I am going to buy the Ugandan. Hopefully, give it a chance. And sometimes some of these products have disappointed we are not yet there. So maybe I'll go and use a Kenyan one or something like that. But the moment I find a good Ugandan product, I'll get back to it. I only listen to Ugandan music. I have an idea what everything else is about when I hang out or go to all these places. But yeah, I try to be as Ugandan as possible, and I work with Next Media Group, which is 22 brands down here in Uganda, and the goal is really to be a big African giant. So we have NBS TV as our flagship brand. Then we have radio stations and TV stations. We have the first 24-hour sports channel in Uganda, put up really to ensure that Ugandans watch more Ugandan sport. So we've put Ugandan sports on television that initially were not even thought of as those that can be on TV and all of those kinds of things. And I mentioned this part of working with Next Media because of the media brands that I've worked with. I've worked with the national broadcaster UBC. I've also worked with a couple of others in the country, but with Next Media, I think the visions aligned. It's as Ugandan and African led as possible. The owner, the proprietor, tries to push the Ugandan story in everything we do. We actually go by the vision or the mission that is we inform to transform Uganda. So whatever it is we're trying to put across, how does it transform Uganda? Be it an entertainment story, a scandal, whatever it is, how does it positively transform Uganda? And I'm glad to be on this topic because, again, in different ways, that is what we have purposed to serve, and we want to become a big African media house to tell the African story by Africans, own our narrative and all of those. So I'm excited to contribute to this topic. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Derek Ford. And Derek, I'm not going to go on to a war on brands and products with you because you've not tested African tea. And once you do, you will not go back to Uganda or Kenya. I commend your government so much with the concept of Bubu. I loved it. I loved it. And I wish the entire African adopted something of that kind. Buy Uganda, build Uganda. And I know you spoke passionately about the Ugandan tea because you're so you're so into Bubu. Okay, but Sunday will speak about African tea. Now he's in Kenya. I'm not sure if it's so much of a tea or coffee drinker, but you want the best of the best, try Tanzania's. But that's topic for another day. Now, Derek, tell us from your experience.
I'll definitely consider that.
Tell us from your experience, and I'm happy that you have such a rich media history. Where do we fail? Where do we fail as African media, as content creators, to tell Africa's story? Where do we fail? What do you think is the reason that we cannot celebrate our own achievements? We cannot celebrate our own successes. We cannot celebrate our very rich African culture, very beautiful people, etc., etc. Where do you think Africa and media owners and content creators fail in promoting Africa's content?
Yeah, in my experience, I wouldn't use the term fail because when we use the term fail, it is, I would think we know and we are refusing to. I think it's more a case of we are growing and going in the direction. We just really need to have more conversations like this morning for more people to see what is possible and all of that. You see, when we talk about things such as, like when you're giving examples earlier, you spoke about when you see BBC, when you see CNN, when you see this and that. What you're really saying is that there is a point to go to. And therefore, if something happened in Africa, if something happened in the world, that, I need to go to BBC and see what exactly is happening. I need to go to CNN and see what exactly is happening. In Africa, I'm not so sure. Maybe I'm not exposed enough, but I do not know where to go to find the African stories. I'll still go to the BBC to see the African story. I'll still go to CNN to see the African story. So I believe the more we grow and get there, we will achieve it. And I think the African challenge is also a lot like the Ugandan challenge. In the Ugandan media space, for example, first and foremost, you have over 50 different tribes in Uganda alone. So some of the challenges we have faced have been around how do I communicate to the whole of Uganda? So you find that we end up with, in Uganda alone, over 300 radio stations, over 100 TV stations. And with the digital migration that came up, almost everyone can open a TV station. Can they maintain it and sustain it and keep it up? Maybe not, but they have the ability to open them. And you'll find that, oh, this is in a language named Runyankore. Oh, that is in a language named Ateso. Oh, no, that is in Langi. That is in this language. That is in this language. And all of those kinds of things. So it's a bit tough. On the other end, when they do something in English, you're probably serving 80% of the continent or something like that. So those are the challenges that we do have. But we are growing, we are getting there and all of that. And with media houses growing and competing to say we are going to compete on the African scale and all of that, maybe in the next 5, 10 or so years, there will be that go-to channel or those go-to 3 or 4 channels for Africa that people, even in the US, can go to and say, yeah, I heard something about Africa. I think I should go to the African, channel that broadcasts all these things, that has positioned itself well enough to be the one that gives authentic African views, or 2 channels or 3 channels. When we can achieve that, then from my communication space, I know for sure, like one of you referred to briefs and all of that, I will be sure, because at the end of the day, these journalists, they're also as human as it gets. And as much as they are passionate about the stories that they do share, and I speak because, again, we have journalists that work with us. At the end of the day, they have targets to meet. Or for you to earn what you're earning, you need to be filing at least 5 stories a week, and they need to be this strong and all of those kinds of things. So they have KPIs to hit. If a journalist is going to go out and investigate a story and start on 50% of it already being given to them as a narrative that they're going to push, there are going to be some common words that are going to hear about a particular story and all of those kinds of things. So before we are able to make those briefs, we have got to build media houses that speak for Africa, that are believed in by Africa, to the extent that even those in the European circles feel like, you know what, I need to tap into it. As it happens right now, if a bomb blast went off in Kampala, God forbid, and the BBC called, everyone is going to call the guy they went for a training with at the last BBC training or the last VOA training or the last, training, etc. They'll make that phone call, and there is a chance this journalist is excited to be on, oh, I'm going to be on the BBC, oh, I'm going to be on this kind of thing and all of that kind of thing. And do they have the right information? Are they equipped enough to have the right information in that moment and all of that? And then, of course, having experienced both PR and journalism, now I also know for sure that sometimes we just do not understand as media people. And maybe on that front, that's where we say we are failing. But of course, we can also say we are still growing into it. For you to know that when you're reporting on Africa, especially for the Globe, we need to adopt more PR than journalism. Maybe borrow a little bit of what we're saying, inform to transform Africa now in this case, in terms of, yes, it's a bad thing that has just happened. There is a president who's been so corrupt, he's been arrested and all of that. How are you going to cover that story for Africa? Now we need to look into those kinds of things when we have the platforms that speak for us that can be spoken to. Are you going to report about all our systems? Dan Woods from US, you're asking me about this question about Africa. And oh yes, our systems are so rotten, they are so bad. You see, you people over there, you are better than us and all of that. Are you going to report it like that? Or are you going to report the fact that, you know what, we have figured out that this is what is happening and all of that, and the systems here are working and they have isolated this kind of issue, and we as Africa do not stand for this, and we're going to look for better. Because guess what? The US also has very corrupt leaders. The US also has leaders that have lived for themselves and have been in office. But how are they covered? They are covered because, the US system works so well, this person is going to be arrested for this long and all of those kinds of things. No, they are not going to report about themselves as the ones who are doing so badly and, in Africa, they do it better. No, they actually make us look like we never do anything right. And they're doing their country PR and all of those things. And they have narratives in their news every single day about how they are doing good and all of that on our end. Oh no, these people are fighting those people and it's terrible. And now it is one bad leader against the other good people and all of those kinds of things. So it's a journey. I think we are learning, but there is still quite the journey. But again, if I am waking up at 7 a.m. to speak to Africa, I believe we're on the right track.
Derek Ford, thank you so much. You have, unleashed, you've poured your heart onto the topic. Thank you so much. And I'm coming next to you after my question to Sunday. I would really want you to speak about skills and skills development when it comes to now the journalists, the editors, the content producers. Do you think we have sufficient skills to really be able to analyze and produce content that speaks about that can rewrite and reshape Africa's narrative? But Sunday, coming to you now, Derek and I share sentiments. Having worked in media for the longest time myself, Derek is still in media as we speak. But you gave an example when you're explaining to earlier on that when you invited media houses, they could not see the value that you'd wanted to pass on into the media. Okay. And we have in media what they say bad news is good than good news, whereby if there's a story of a dog biting a man, that would not sell. But if a man ate a dog, that news will probably be on the front news. What is your take when it comes to really valuing the content by the content producers? What do you think the content producers ought to really, again, think positively towards analyzing the content that we are producing, analyzing the content that we want to share so that more Africans can benefit from it? Sunday, what's your take?
So that's a really good one. Let me start by saying I believe our brother Mugisha should definitely try Kenyan tea, and he should definitely try Rwandan tea, and then get back to us. So as a Tanzanian living in Kenya, I always ask my friends when they come to visit, bring me Tanzanian cashew nuts and Tanzanian tea. But while I'm here, it's Kenyan tea all the way. So as East Africans, I think it's good to compete with each other. That's how the West got to where they got to, because they competed. So with that aside, it's nice to meet you, Mugisa, and Mugumisa, my mistake. And it's been an honor to share this stage with you. So, Austin, to your question, I'm going to throw some statistics. I like coming on your show. 1 second. I said I like coming on your show because it gets me to do a little bit of research on different aspects. So I'm not a communications person or a PR person. I'm an addiction recovery specialist and a mental health advocate. My background is law. I've done business development, and it's interesting now we talk about narratives, perspectives, etc. Look, the challenges content creators face, I think, in our part of the world. One is regulatory space. You're hearing taxes being put up on content creators in Kenya. You hear about content creators in Uganda being summoned by government. You remember Zanzibar, those kids at Forodhani who do the running and the diving, and how these guys put Zanzibar on the map. And I think a year ago or so, they were suspended for a couple of months. And you go, wow, these kids who brought the whole world to Zanzibar, now they've been told, stop. I think the, the one reason given was health and safety or something like that. But I feel like we have knee-jerk reactions when someone creates something and the powers that be don't like the narrative. We have a cease and desist rather than patience, rather than openness. And I think we take one step forward, two steps back. My event last Thursday, this brings people to speak about their mental health and their addictions on stage. So me and my team are challenging that narrative that if you're an addict or in recovery or you have mental health, keep it to yourself. Now, I don't know how popular narrative that is, but I am trying to challenge it. I reached out to one or two journalists I know, one or two friends who know journalists, but I think the story of the day now in Tanzania is politics with regards to the elections. And that's the feedback I was given that, hey man, we're chasing these stories related to elections. We will see if we can come and cover your event. Now, what can I do other than continue to create for content and hope that people follow up? You've had me on your show talking about the work that I'm doing, and I'm very grateful to you and Wake Up Africa. But here's some statistics. There are fewer than 3,000 cinemas in Africa showing traditional films. 3,000 across the whole continent. And if you're to do an analysis to see what kind of movies they're showing, more than 80% will be foreign films. So we are part of projecting and promoting foreign narratives. Now, the high cost of data, limited access to online content across the continent holds us back. So from an infrastructural and access perspective, Africa needs to keep pushing. We've come a long way in a short period of time. Fiber optics are there, but we need to put even more emphasis on that. Monetization difficulties. Are content creators in Africa being paid their true worth compared to elsewhere? I read about content creators in Europe, in America, and the millions of dollars that they're getting. And I go, why aren't we having African content creators making millions of dollars? And I'm sure if they exist, they will be heavily taxed. So I think the whole idea of taxing as well needs to be looked at because you don't want to discourage, you want to encourage. That Sunday who's creating content, who's not making any money off his content yet. If you're going to tax me for the first $1,000 that I made, this is a year and a half of making content. That's discouraging. Then finally, I'd say cultural perceptions and preferences. So I'll speak about MySpace. In the African context, when I started going public about my challenges with addiction, family wasn't very happy, obviously. You're going to make your name look bad, you're not going to get any jobs. It was fear-based, which I understood and I challenged. Now I'm getting people to share their stories. And one of my first comebacks to family and friends was, but you were telling me about Oprah on Oprah's show. So and said such and such. Now when one of your own is being as honest, I used to get complimented all the way in Kenya, where I am now, for my content. I think I have more access here. I've been on TV. I've never been on TV in Tanzania, or rather, be interviewed on a TV station. Now, I think I go back to the Bible. Sometimes you need to get out of your comfort zone to then get attention outside, to then generate interest inside, which I think is quite sad because I'm Tanzanian, I'm proudly Tanzanian, I want to talk to Tanzanians. But as fate would have it, I'm in Kenya. And now I think my profile in Tanzania is growing a little bit more, which begs the question, if I was still in Tanzania, would I have hit the ceiling? So I think the opportunities and strategies for growth are huge. Like you said, we have a bridge being inaugurated next week. That should be an African story. You should have multi choice there. You should have SABC there. Is SABC going to be there? I don't know. Is Uganda TV going to be there? And this is a bridge that connects East Africa. Is Uganda TV going to be there? Is Nation TV going to be there? Or are they going to be taking from ITV? You know, are they actually going to, do they have regional bureaus, by the way? Now I'm actually curious, you know? So again, I think the newer generation, you two, in this particular field, should now be pushing for a regional African perspective when it comes to selling our story. Netflix and Showmax and Amazon Prime and all of these guys. If I look at the African content there, it's going to be more Nigerian. And I praise Nigerians because they've been pushing. Austin, you and I used to take buses when we were in high school and college. I remember the African content I was seeing on those buses were Nigerian movies. Not the best in terms of cinematography or whatever, but they were. But I know today Nollywood is watched in the Caribbean. I know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So if they did it, why are others struggling to do it? You know, so I'll just finish off by saying I think the challenge is on for African content. I think there's strength in numbers. I think we should compete for local stories. And I think profiles like Wake Up Africa is doing a great job. To see Mugumisa here as well, being very prominent and proud about the stuff they're doing in Uganda. I think this is the narrative. We should be going to the schools. We should be, I think, any stage, whether it's business, politics, cultural, there should always be an aspect of somebody speaking to the pride of being an African in that country and going, guys, we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. Let's start telling our stories. Let us counter foreign perspectives of our story. Thank you.
Sunday, thank you so much. And truly, you've hit the ceiling and the sky. You know, I have my own saying that, you know, we're used to saying sky is the limit, but I always tell people if there's space beyond the sky, then go beyond the sky. So skies shouldn't be the limit. So thank you so much. Whenever you come to Tanzania, whenever you want to engage with Tanzania media, we will shortly be joined by Balile, who is the I did introduce him earlier on, and he will be able to also share his perspective. He is the chairman of the Tanzania Editors Forum, and I'm happy when you plan Tanzania, let me know so I can organize a couple of interviews with you. And this is basically leading us on to the next questions that I'm going to ask my brother Derek Ford, because even that interview Sunday that I'm going to organize with you on our local media, someone will have to pay for that. Do you know what I mean? They do not see media as about content as content, but they're looking onto that little, that, I won't call it little, that money that you have to pay for the content to come out. And this is for Tanzania. This is for Africa. You know what I mean? This is for Uganda, Kenya. This is for the entire continent. But again, you want it out, you have to pay for it. You want Western soap operas, you buy them. They're not for free. So you don't just download Manchester playing Liverpool. You pay for that, which is now allow me to bring on back onto the platform, Derek Ford. What do you think is the reason we do not, one, invest in skills, but two, why is it that we do not even want to invest in generating content in Africa? It's easier to go on to CNN website or the website or the streaming and cut and edit and paste, etc., etc. Why is it that Africa's media, again, you told me not to use the word we cannot, but why are we limited in terms of, you know, enhancing our journalists to really pick up the relevant skills to produce the relevant content that can reshape Africa's narrative. Derek, your experience on this, please.
Huge question, this one, yeah. Wow, it's one that needs to be unpacked in so many different ways, but I'll give it my best shot. I think one of the things we are fighting against is the fact that we've been conditioned a certain way already. The Western media, they have invested so much in trying to be the source of information that we also have to invest so much in ensuring that our people believe in our products. There are so many people that would rather, in Africa, for example, we ridicule each other for not speaking good English, a language that is not even ours. So we suffer a little bit of an inferiority complex, which again is something that has been ensured by the Western world that we have about our own products. And so that will lead to, again, where do people pick their information from? They're going to trust a Western outlet about something that we're doing here before they trust us and all of that. But that is not to say it cannot be changed, but we have to be consistent about it. We have to be investing a lot in it. We have to, at least for the start, and I think we have quite a few, ambassadors that are doing that, appear like them while doing us, that kind of thing. I think Larry Madowo does a good job as well as far as that is concerned. We've started having a number of, we are biased to East Africa, so we'll recognize our East Africans playing at that level and then coming back to report on our stories that way. But as we lament about all these things that are not going right over there and all of that, we also need to improve our quality, as simple as that. I think we are in an era where many of us are now more exposed and also need to do things in a way that the others are doing them, but doing them for Africa. So if I'm going to write a news story, it cannot be with all this broken English on the website and a photo just landed on there and all of that. We also need to start looking into what does that website look like when I get to it? Can we start investing in those kinds of resources? You speak about people not investing in the quality of content and all of that. But the moment we continue accepting poor content as, no, it's African, you should love it and all of that, then we are failing at a certain level. So we too need to attain a certain level so other people can believe it. Because if Wake Up Africa comes up and says, at 7 a.m. we shall be talking, or maybe at 7:30 a.m. we shall be speaking, and then today it doesn't show up, the other day it shows up, today it really doesn't look like they even prepared to have the right content come to us and all, then we will take it as, just another African thing. But if there is a European version of Wake Up Africa, they're going to be on every day. They are going to dress the part like Austin is doing so this morning. They're going to have good audio. They're going to try and have good camera feeds. They're going to have informed people on that panel and all of that. And that will be consistent. So again, it is a mental thing, in my opinion. It is, how do we tune Africans to believe in African content by doing what those people that they already love are doing? So we need to also be as strategic as it gets, because now it's a behavioral change thing that we need to go into. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in 1 year. It's probably going to take 4 years, 5 years. But with how big Africa is, we have to get a united force of the 5 people or 6 people who are affecting different parts of the region. By people, I mean organizations, really, and push in that direction consistently with quality. Then the other bits will get to fall in place and all. But for me, it needs to start at the level whereby we say, how do we not accept mediocrity in general? How do we be more strategic? How do we gain a purpose and all of that? If media houses gained purposes, and I will tell you for sure that in our industry, especially in Uganda, and I've interacted with a couple of people who have been media leaders in the industry from Kenya and a bit of Tanzania too, and they will tell you it's not so many media houses that are led strategically. A big chunk of media houses are side hustles of people who are politicians or pastors or something. It's just a means to get their core message, their core business to a mass, a mass number of people and all of that. It's not so many media houses that are constructed and put in place because, hey, this is my primary business and I want to positively contribute to East Africa. I think we are lacking a bit of that. And we need to, I think this is where it starts. The most genuine media platforms currently are digital platforms that are usually smaller. It's my YouTube channel. I believe in what I'm doing, and I'm going to push it as much as possible and all of that. It is my podcast. I love it. I'm going to push it as much as that. But the TV stations that are, going across 30% of nations and all of those, they're really side businesses. I am a pastor, I have a church, and I just want a place where my people can watch my sermons and all of that kind of stuff. So if you're not being strategic enough, if you're not being intentional enough, now those are the ones that can invest in the trainings that you're talking about. But do they see the need for it? I'm not so sure they do, because hey, if you do some gossip, I don't care how you do it. If you do some this and some that, and we get some ad revenue and ad spend from the different corporate companies, it's good enough. And they will also join the rest of the country in complaining about what is going on, in the world and all of those kinds of things. So, yeah, it has got to be behavioral. It has got to be that now our media houses have a purpose. I will try and use Sunday's example, for example, and it's tough, because I've been on both ends, and now I am serving in sport, and you're going to put together a decent press conference, and you're going to struggle to be covered unless you give fuel to the reporter and all of those things. But again, how do we convert some of these people? Because what I've done for my rugby club down here in Uganda is that I have tried to identify popular figures when it comes to the TV station, the TV screen, but also producers at different top stations and all of those. And I have been as vocal about my team as possible, and I will wear my jersey to their events, and I'll be exemplary in terms of them seeing what I'm doing with this team and how passionate I am about it, to the point that they start asking me questions like, but why is it that you love this team as much as you do and all? And then you passionately speak to them about this. The next time they hear it somewhere, they might pick interest in it. That, it's just a passion thing and all of that, but I think they are big. So you try and make them see why it is as huge as it gets. So maybe, again, it might be literary. They could have done that and all. When we talk to strategy, especially with media relations and all of that, could it be that mental health, as an example, and I think we suffer the same thing down here in Uganda, is a sign of weakness, because if you're an African man, what do you mean you are mentally disturbed? What do you mean you're traumatized by a small issue at the workplace and all of that? So maybe a little more of getting these people and just showing them examples where they know all of these people. Is it a political country like Uganda is? Can we highlight more of the politicians that have struggled, mentally from issues like these and all of that? And then maybe we start saying, oh, it's actually can get serious. This was a very big politician. This was a very high potential politician at some point. And now here he is, he's speaking about how he struggled with this. And he's referring to points whereby there was this scandal or this, mistaken identity in a big case in the country. And because of what he went through, that's why he went off the radar and all of those. So you start to sell the story to them through the things that they're already paying attention to. And then maybe over time, again, it's behavioral change. It's not going to take 2 weeks, 1 month. Like I said, behavioral change campaigns usually take much longer. And maybe over time, they start realizing that, hey, we lost that politician, we lost this other person. Guys, if we are going to keep losing leaders like this, we need to pay attention to this topic and all of those kinds of things. But yeah, like I said, it's a very loaded question. It's a very loaded situation. But those are some of the issues that I feel we continue to face as Africa, trying to tell the African story the African way.
Absolutely. African story, the African way, by Africans, for Africa and the whole world as we reshape the narratives of Africa. Wake Up Africa this Saturday morning, the 7th of June, 2025. I'm honored and always delighted to have Africa's finest minds onto the program to discuss African content. And I'm delighted that we've just been joined by my very dear friend, Alan Subi. Good morning, Alan, all the way from Uganda. Well,
Good morning, Makani.
And I must say, the energy you have this morning is beyond par. If you played golf, I would have given it a birdie. How are you this morning, Alan?
I'm good. Kampala is fine. I'm so glad Derek Ford gets to be here with me today representing Uganda.
Absolutely. It's truly an honor. And your dear Sunday is also with us this morning.
Oh, hi, Sunday. Good morning.
Good morning, Yabo. How are you? I see two Tanzanians, two Ugandans.
It's been a minute.
Good to hear your voice.
Thanks.
I am going to ask the three of you to give me or give Africa your perspective of technological advancement. Is AI a threat to, is AI really a threat to our authenticity of the content? I will ask all of you to really give us your take on that, AI and authenticity of the content. But again, Alan Subi, as you're well aware, we are looking onto the Africa's media and the role in reshaping the narrative of African continent. What is your take on the topic? And then you can now give us your response to social media, content producers, the use of AI and authenticity.
Well, thank you, Austin. My thoughts on today's topic, really. I don't know why when I saw the topic, my mind instantly switched to tourism, how we can sell Africa as a continent to the rest of the world using the media. That's what my mind ran to. So I want to speak into that this morning. I think we have a unique opportunity to use the media to change the way the rest of the world views Africa, to get as much information out there to the world as we possibly can using our media. And yet, sadly, and I have a feeling Derek Ford has touched on this. Sadly, we are not in total control of our media, or maybe our media does not know the power that it yields, because there's so much negativity that the media is putting out there that should not necessarily be out there. We're talking about corruption. We're talking about misuse of government funds, and how bad the situation is in health, in education, and whatnot. And And don't get me wrong, the situation is that bad. But then again, can the media focus on the other things that are working out for us, that the other things that can attract tourism, the other things that are working in our favor? Can those be the focus? Because Austin, you're well traveled. You will go to countries and you'll be surprised by how bad things are, and yet that's not the narrative being told. And I'm not going to give examples. I'm not going to give examples, but you get on ground and you're like, I didn't know this side of dash dash dash. This side of this place is not put out there, and yet they do exist. But before you hit Ugandan streets, you know that we have slums. You are aware that we get an epidemic every other year. You are aware of so much bad stuff because it's our own media that's putting that stuff out there. So that's the angle I looked at this topic with. That how do we empower our media houses to put out a narrative that works for us, and give less airplay, give less airtime to things like corruption, like the bad health state, and all that stuff. They are there, and government is doing things about them, but do we really have to broadcast them the way we do? Do we have to give them that much airplay? Yeah. Then the other issue I wanted to touch on is the power for us. And like I said, if, for example, on this topic that I'm discussing, the power of the media to change our narrative. If the media houses are failing us at that, then can we become our own brand ambassadors for our countries? Can we become influencers? Derek Ford was talking about how he's talking about his sports, how he's being his own influencer. Can we all do that? Because much as we're discussing media, I need us to also appreciate the fact that we are our own media channels. We all have social media platforms that we can use to drive this narrative. We can't only rely on Next Media, on Dembe FM, on whatnot. We can also use our platforms to change the narrative of Africa to the rest of the world. That's it from me, Austin.
Ellen Subi, thank you so much. I completely agree with you, and Derek is going to come in and tell us as well as Sunday, when you said we do not have a total control of our media houses. We do not have a total control of our media houses. We do not have a total control of what really comes out of media. When you have a media house that is almost 60% or 80% of its content coming out of, that country or coming out of Africa, would you say that you have a control of that? This is where now, from my media experience back in the days, when you sign up a contract maybe to re-air DW or BBC, you're not allowed to even insert a jingle in between. So when they speak ill about Africa at that particular time, as you rightly said, we need to empower media houses and give less airtime to negative content that could give negative narratives about Africa. It's not that we do not have. As you rightly said, I visited one of the biggest cities in the world. One of the biggest cities in the world. And here is where you have the international airport. I was going to board my flight then. Right across the road, not the next street, right? You just cross the road and are the biggest slums in the world. I've never seen such poverty in my whole entire life here in Africa. And I've visited quite a number of African countries. I've visited the villages in Tanzania, and I tell you, I'd never seen such. So absolutely, and you will never see that. You will never see that, for the interest of many things. I will not mention that country. But they've also done a video about that, a beautiful video showing how, never mind, we all have gotten the picture. But again, thank you for bringing that up. We need, as an African content producer, as an African media, as a media owner, the likes of Mugumisa and yourself and Sunday and everyone watching and listening to Wake Up Africa this morning to really, really now consider the amount of airtime that we give to the bad news vis-a-vis the good news, vis-a-vis the cultures, the development, etc., that Africa has. You know, Sunday spoke about Darfur, but when you mention Darfur, Sunday, it's not Darfur. It could also be a street in Darfur, some district, you know. So we really need to, it's for us content producers to really show the world that Africa is way, way better than that. Now, back to my original question to start with you, Sunday. Do you think AI has anything to do with, you know, watering down the authenticity of Africa's content?
So yes, I always love being on this panel. I love listening to Alan Subi speak, and now I'm in the great company of Mr. Derek. Um, like I said, you always challenge me when I come on this show to actually do a little bit of research, and I've always been someone interested in learning different things. To your question, yes, I think AI potentially, if unregulated, can be misused. What do I mean by that? Cultural erasure. You're wearing a Maasai outfit, proudly representing the Maasai, which is neither Tanzanian nor Kenyan. I don't know if we have some in Uganda, but as a
The
Tanzanian,
Banyankole, I think, Mugumisa would say that I think the Banyankole wear like this, right?
A bit similar, but it's quite different, a bit similar. And
Okay.
it's really more of the ladies that have what we call the Omushanana, that kind
Oh,
of
okay.
thing like that. Then also the herdsmen, yeah, they have this, of course, different kind of fabric, but it's similar to that because I think of how hot it gets out there in the fields and all. But yeah.
I think
yeah,
the Shaka Zulu as well. Sunday, please go ahead.
yeah. No, I was just saying that when I think of AI, me as a Tanzanian, when I look at what you're wearing, I go, yes, the Maasai are being proudly represented. If there's an AI tool out there that's been made out of the US or Europe, I don't know what it's going to say because I don't think the data that's put in it is really representative of African cultural, historical content. Um, Job displacement, because of AI tools, traditional journalists may be at risk. Um, Content creators, how are they using it? Are they using AI at all? For instance, um, I know during my research, a lot of Nigerian content creators are using AI subtitle generating sort of tools. So therefore, whatever is being spoken, you look at the lips and it's like you're talking in another person's local language. So I think education on AI is very important on how to use it. So local content creators, citizen journalists, if they use AI properly, can reach to a more local audience and reach to a much further audience. The other challenge with AI is spreading misinformation. I mean, we're now living in an era where a YouTube clip of Derek could go viral, but is it really Derek? And if you know Derek, you'd go, no, I don't think this is Derek. Do we even have the patience now to kind of verify? So it's kind of a scary time where we live. Um, but I also see the opportunity, and the opportunity for AI is as follows. Um, I had a really hard time trying to move my mind from being old school to actually getting on social media. For those that know me, I was on Facebook 10, 15 years without posting anything. But I challenged myself a year and a half ago when I said, okay, I don't know. Austin knows this, but when I left rehab, I Googled. I said, who has been to rehab in Tanzania? And AI took me to Kenya. And I started following Kenyan people who were talking about rehab and mental health. That in itself, for me, till today, is still problematic. And I only know one other guy, a guy called Jeremy Makundi. I think I can confidently say his name because he also talks about his journey with alcohol abuse and the great work he's doing right now to help people. So I can only think of two people in a country of 61 million that are talking about, I had these problems. This is what I'm doing about it, and I'm trying to help people. Now, how can AI play in that space? You look at the content Jeremy is doing, he uses a lot of Canva and is really great at putting the package together. Me, on the other hand, I'm not really good at that stuff. I, I'm good at authentically sharing my story and amplifying other people's stories. So what do I need? I need people like you and Mugisa and Alan Subi to say, you know what? I know a young guy in Uganda. He could do with some exposure. You said you want someone who can help you with content. Here is somebody. You guys work it out. I'd love for Mugumisa to invite me to Uganda and say, hey, we have a problem with alcohol abuse over here. Maybe come through, let's do a talk. What does that have to do with AI? You've got your AI tools, you've got your digital platforms. So therefore we start leveraging each other. What I lack, somebody else has. And in a place where people may not talk openly about addiction or mental health, which is my area, look for someone in the region. And you know what, Mugumisa, if you invite me, I'll bring you Kenyan tea and Tanzanian tea. So you see how it all comes together. So that's my contribution.
Sunday, thank you so much, and be rest assured, as a great media player in Uganda, Mugumisa is already putting up a script to that program with you. Mugumisa, over to you.
Yeah, well, this Kenyan Tanzanian tea thing, maybe we'll see.
You started it.
Hey man, beef is not always a bad thing, my brother. Beef is not. Plus, I've not been to Uganda in so long. Alan Subi invited me. We said we'll come with Austin. So why don't we shoot Wake Up Africa at your studio one of these days?
It sounds like an idea. It sounds like an idea, and I think it's quite practical. I'll be in touch with Alan, and then we'll see what we need to put in place and ensure that this gets to happen. I like the platform that you guys have going on. So the AI conversation, Austin, it really still goes back to where we came from. Who speaks for Africa? Which media house is that we're going to trust to speak for Africa? Again, when we talk DW, when we talk CNN, when we talk VOA, and all these media houses, they're not the only media houses speaking for the Western world. They are just the ones that for the conversation we're having, that have been chosen to be the engines for these. Who owns them? You'll find that it is governments and, or people that are interested in shaping the image of that part of the Western world. Is it Britain, so BBC? Is it the US or CNN? Is this that kind of thing? Is it Europe, so DW, Germany, and all of those? And they will tell the stories they want to tell. I'm sure they also do have media houses that do the kind of things that we're castigating African media for doing and all of that. Now, the AI becomes an opportunity, but then it is an opportunity that comes at a point where we are already disadvantaged. So we need to do a whole lot more work. AI picks its answers and prompts and everything else from what other people have entered into the internet. Now, if the stories that were being told before AI arrived were already so negative, but we're only picking them off TV, imagine how worse off we are now. Now that every kind of work that they had been doing right for years is what AI is feeding the world, including narratives by them about us on that same AI and all of that. So yes, there needs to be it's an opportunity, because now we know we need to understand search engine optimization as much as possible. What are people usually looking for about Africa? It is X, Y, and Z. What are the keywords they usually use as they search about Africa? It's X, Y, and Z. Now, what positive stories about that African part can we ensure that we consistently put out there? such that whenever AI is prompted to, speak about Africa or depict anything African, our voice is also heard. Can we at least start at the level of, this is what I know as AI. However, there are also these kinds of things. Can we at least compete and get to the however, and then maybe later? And our situation currently is exactly what Sunday is pointing out. What do you mean that out of 61 million Tanzanians, if I'm to go with the numbers he shared, only 2 people are speaking about their mental health? Is it not a problem over there? It definitely is. But it also points to the fact that no one is really writing about it or writing about their own story or doing it enough. And again, that's where the challenges get to come through. We are also, again, disadvantaged. We were talking about this earlier when the Western world depicts a picture of us. There are people among us that are earning a lot of money out of justifying that image. We have politicians who, for a chance at the national cake, seem to be making allies with some of these bodies, and really amplifying what Alan was saying shouldn't be amplified out there. And the more Alan was speaking about things that are out there that we don't see, almost every year over the last decade, I've been to Nairobi to watch the Elgon Cup. And we lose that a lot of the times against Kenya. But when we go there, because of how long it takes to usually use road, how long it takes to get there, then you arrive probably the night before game day or in the morning, wee hours of game day, you're resting, you get up, maybe a little tour of Nairobi in the car, and then go watch the game. The moment the game is done, it's rugby tradition, the party and all of that. And Sunday morning, because of how long the journey is, you're all back on the bus and you're back to Uganda. So that really just exposes me to central Nairobi, about 5 or 10 streets of Nairobi, and that's that. And in my books, you cannot convince me that Nairobi has a slum. If I'd never been to Kibera as a kid visiting it, you would never have convinced me that Kibera is one of Africa's, if not Africa's biggest slum, and it's in Nairobi. Because when I go there, I am only looking at the streets and the shops and the museum and all of these things. That's all I'm exposed to. So I do not know about any other side of Nairobi. And I think that is what now we need to feed into AI as much as possible. Who's doing positive content about Africa? Who is, we still have a lot of exclusive information that shouldn't be exclusive. There, we need to find a very old man who lives 200 kilometers from a city, who knows the history of why the Maasai dress like Austin is dressed today. Is that information readily available? Probably not, but you will be shocked at what American and Chinese lately and European information about some of the most useless things over there. Now, again, the big challenge to us is AI relying on information that we feed the web every single day arrives at a time whereby the Western world and China are doing a great thing, feeding it with what they want to be out there. And we've barely started. I mean, someone might argue we have, but according to Sunday's, confession right here, he just said he looked among 61 million Tanzanians and only 2 were speaking about their mental health and all of that. Try checking what is happening in the world of mental health. Even in China today, we have videos and texts all over the website, all over the web, telling us about how Chinese education is different, how they get their kids at a young age to do what they get to do and all of that. Yeah, good stuff. But I mean, we also have situations like those down here in Africa, stories that are not being told, we have ways that our grandmothers, I'll speak for Uganda, found out who had what disease without a checkup. You know, isn't that good content that could be on, websites and all of that? I mean, they didn't die of malaria, but somehow they knew when you had malaria, they had some STDs and UTIs and all of those, and they figured them out and they knew which hub to use and all of that. Who is putting that information on the web? I mean, it's also good information, isn't it? So, it's a big challenge to all of us, especially to us that are in the media. We also have a situation whereby shows like these are boring for our audiences. You know, you're going to put it together, put a beautiful panel together, and make all this research and tell guys, hey, at 9 p.m. today, this is going to be on TV. And they're like, who are those guys? What are they going to tell us about this? I think that's boring and all. And then there will be content that you say is what you're going to be putting on TV. And suddenly everyone is very interested. I will give an example. I think we share a couple of platforms with Alan down here where some of our platforms have been castigated and all of that. But, even for political TV shows, we talk about Uganda being political and all of that. But if you went, and this is the reality of Uganda, which is the challenge that we do have as we talk about, shaping the narrative of Africa. If you sat down and talked about how, there are some abductions that are happening in the country and all of that, so we're going to bring in University Professor X because he's covered political science. We're also going to bring in this ambassador, and then going to bring in also this person, and you'll even balance the sex, and so it's not a manual, it is a panel that has both women and men and all of and tick all the boxes. 10 p.m. is going to arrive and you're thinking, where are the viewers at? Because now you're able to track and see what is happening. But on that day, speak the same topic and bring in the most vocal, comical politicians to speak about the same thing. And suddenly you are booming with numbers. Now, the business of media is a business of eyeballs. Alan is also, privileged to work with an advertising agency. And before they allocate money to advertise, because again, what a TV is going to sell is that space in the breaks. It's not even the content itself, it's that space in the breaks. If a company is interested in advertising, her team is going to call and ask, what are your numbers at this time? Or they already have the research and all of that. So I have a challenge. I need to have eyeballs to attract the money that keeps these shows running. And yet the people that we are selling this content to don't like intellectual content, or a few of them, not enough of them, love it. We need to treat it a certain way for them to tune in. So it's a battle for numbers, and yet you also have, this transformational content that you need to put across. Now you are sitting with these comical politicians and saying, guys, we know you have all these interests and all of that, but at the end of the show, can we ensure that our viewers can see points A, B, C, and D? And then you sit back and hope. So yeah, even the Africans that are consuming this content, unfortunately, have already been conditioned to like a certain kind of content. So things like mental health might not be a thing for them until it is too late, either in their lives or someone close to them. And then suddenly they too are ambassadors. And now they become 4 people joining Sunday to be so disgruntled as to why everyone else doesn't pay attention to this huge topic. So it's a cycle. But it is one that, again, can we identify? We go back to the top. How do we identify who speaks for Africa? Who is that person that even the BBC will be looking at and saying, I cannot report on this story if I don't tap into the view of SABC or, I'll put it out there, NBS or, those kinds of platforms and all of that? Can we identify those platforms and as Africans pitch and ensure that they are in place? The Western world has shown us that it works when you have a PR engine in CNN, in BBC, in Al Jazeera, in all of these. can we identify ours? Those that are not just trying to compete on the local scene, but try to tell that African story we want. Those that shape the narrative. Because unfortunately, the African journalist, it goes back to a little bit of something Austin was speaking about, the African journalist is a big fan of Christiane Amanpour. Christiane Amanpour is directed on how she should attract some topics. The African journalist receives that angle. And she's tough speaking and all of that. And I will come and I'll be tough speaking to my politicians locally, copying what Christiane Amanpour, my idol, does. Unfortunately, I'm going to do that while putting down Africa. But hey, this guy does it like Christiane Amanpour, and I am a great journalist from Africa because of that. But what have I sold to the rest of the world? I have reinforced or reiterated the narrative that the Western world wants us to have about Africa by doing that. When you look around for content about the bad roads and the slums and all of that, yeah, most of the authentic content is coming from Africans themselves. Are they taking photos and videos of the good infrastructure in Uganda and all of that? No, because when I watch CNN, there is this African, and usually that's the only authentic African thing in that story, the African drums in the background and all of that. In Africa, women die in their 10,000s because of hunger. And that's out there. So I am excited by that. And now I am taking photos of all the hungry kids on the streets and all of that kind of stuff. Because, hey, I am conditioned to believe that that is what good content is. It's a mindset change. It's a behavioral change. And it's a journey that we need to take strategically and quite substantially as a continent.
Mugumisa, thank you so much. Thank you so much because, it's not just about the steps we take or the move we make. It's about the steps we take and the moves we make to the direction that we want to go. And you've given that a highlight. And I really want now to pick it from Alan and the rest of us as we are headed towards the close of Wake Up Africa this morning. You asked not one time, not two times, not three times, who speaks for Africa? And Alan Sube would like to have your brains on that. Who speaks for Africa? And as you contemplate on that, together with your parting remarks, I wish to also learn from you. Do the content producers know, or are they aware of how powerful media is? Who speaks for Africa? Alan Subi, your parting remarks as you tackle this final question. And Sunday, Mugumisa, and that will be the end of Wake Up Africa this morning. Alan?
Austin, before I even give my submission on this, I think Mugumisa owes us a lecture on this subject.
It does.
We need to have a public lecture. Yeah. So, technology and AI, how we can use it to our advantage. And then again, who speaks for Africa? I think Africans speak for Africa. In my earlier submission, I said we should all embrace our roles. First of all, get to appreciate that we have roles to play and then also embrace them by taking them on. We all have social media platforms. We all have other platforms where we can speak for Africa. Let's do that. And technology and AI are making them easier, making it easier for us to develop content and share it on our platforms. So I wish we could all just get to that, because slowly by slowly, Africa's narrative is going to change when we all, don't just sit back and watch the media go the wrong way, but we take it on and play our part. I think we are all on TikTok, apart from Sundays. Sundays must be a passive TikToker. We are seeing how much content is being put out there. We are seeing kids from the ghetto, from slums, dancing and portraying this fun image of Africa. I've seen people coming from German and whatnot to see ghetto kids. Oh, Uganda, the home of the ghetto kids. Imagine how small such a such an aspect could have been, but now it's being blown up because of social media, and they're using AI tools to edit their content, and it's beautiful. Imagine if this were the case in everything entertainment, in everything tourism, in everything education. I've also seen schools are having TikTok pages, and during break time they're creating fun content. They are learning, the learning is happening, but the image they're portraying is learning, is fun. So I think if to answer the question, who speaks for Africa, it's all of us do speak for Africa, because if we really leave this for media and for politicians, this is going to play out the way it has over the past 2,000 years, and it's not working in our favor. We need to take on this role as Alan, as Austin, as Sunday, as Derek Ford, and we do speak for Africa. So my parting remarks on this topic is that we should just take it on ourselves. And I think it's been the same in all these topics that we've discussed, because I do think there's something on an individual level that we can all contribute to changing Africa's narrative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan Subi. It's always an honor and pleasure. And thank you for bringing Mugumisa into the topic. Everyone giving me the messages that are following on YouTube are telling us, yes, this guy does owe us a lecture on the topic. So we totally concur with you. Thank you so much. Sunday, who speaks for Africa, and what would your parting remarks be?
I think for a long time, others spoke for Africa. I think with AI and social media, here we are on Wake Up Africa talking as Africans for Africa. That public lecture that Mugumisa will be doing, I will be sipping Kenyan tea, and I'll be serving him Tanzanian tea, and Alan Subi, could be having Ethiopian tea. Let's go East African. But Austin provoked me to say the following, which I appreciate. So I remember when HIV and AIDS was a big deal in East Africa. It was when we were in our teens. And what I remember was Uganda was the first country in East Africa that went public about it at a political level, made the legal changes. I remember hearing about Makerere University back in the day. Tanzania was still silent. Kenya was still silent. Uganda took the lead. Why do I give that example? When it comes to mental health and addiction recovery, which is what I'm about, I'm like, which of these East African countries will take lead? So why don't I challenge Wake Up Africa together with our brother and sister in Uganda and say, get me a bus ticket. I will take that long trip to Kampala. Austin likes flying, so he can afford to fly. I'll take the bus. Let's all meet there. Keep me in a very cheap motel for 1 week and just organize different mental health platforms, and I will sell the heaven out of my experience, because we need to break that silence. Mental health is a problem, addiction and alcoholism is a problem, and we're now looking to foreign content creators to educate us on our problem. And just to correct, it's 2 Tanzanians I know who talk about addiction and alcohol. Sunday is one of them, Jeremy is the other. Mental health, we've got a couple of people. But on alcohol abuse and substance use abuse, I only know 2. And I'm telling myself, the reason why we're only 2 is because of the stigma, the silence, the shame, the embarrassment, and that is what is killing us. So my parting shot is, can Wake Up Africa and lecturer Mugumisa and expert Alan Subi get me a bus ticket. I'm coming there, and let the beginning of mental health and addiction start with us. And then you guys use every AI tool possible, because from where I'm seated, the more silent we are, it's already a problem. Suicides are up, depression are up, etc. Check out my website, www.mwangazawasande.co.tz. I think it's /. It's on the chat. I launched it on Thursday. I'm building a directory of professional services across Kenya and Tanzania for now, and hopefully Uganda, and facilities as well, so that I become a hub. If you want to get help for suicide, depression, addiction, go to Sunday's website and I connect you with other people who are doing this stuff, because there's a big information gap, a very, very big divide, and a lot of misinformation out there. I'm trying to bring it all together and I need your help with it. So thank you, Austin, for the support. Nice to meet you, Derek Ford. Alan Subi, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Sunday. I take the challenge. Yes, unfortunately, I like to fly because I don't want to. I'm planning to live 115 years, Sunday, and I really need to look after my back and my bones. Before 115th birthday, I need to still be very, very strong. So I can't do long travels. But yes, I take that challenge, and Alan and I and Mugumisa will land you in Kampala when our colleagues in Kampala have organized a couple of sessions from university to probably hospitals to youth centers. Mugumisa has a team, a rugby team, probably give them a session as well. And when that itinerary is up, I will pay for that return ticket and accommodation, and colleagues in Uganda will do the rest. But I've taken as Wake Up Africa Live that challenge. Mugumisa, what would your closing remarks be?
It looks like this thing is going to happen first and foremost. So yes, with Alan, we will work on the ground and ensure that we have the right partners to ensure that it's as big an event as possible. And then it will be on me to ensure that it is televised, it is well promoted. And yes, the rugby team will have to be partners and they will be recipients of this information. So yes, that's my commitment as well. And yes, thanks for all the kind words. Who Speaks for Africa? Someday, maybe in 5-10 years, with proper strategic leadership of a couple of media houses, we need to have our own DW, our own CNN, our own BBC, that even those that are there gets to say, we have had this, but we need to hear from these people. And these people need to also, yes, get the training from the BBC, the CNN, and all of that we currently get, but don't get their view of us. But over and above, what are some of the small things that we can do, right? Can you not take the bad picture of your country, of your community, and put it on the internet? Because that picture lives there forever. Can you ensure that the beautiful things that are happening around you are what you post every day? Yes, you speak for Africa for now, and maybe you will influence those that we need to speak for Africa when we are ready. Because like I gave you that example earlier, those that speak for Africa currently pick up on what seems to interest you, because social media has arrived and it determines what the conversations are. There was a time when TV was the primary screen. When we did programming and all of that, we said at 8 p.m., put the news bulletin. At 10 p.m., put the news bulletin. And everyone on social media was telling each other, guys, the bulletin is at 8 p.m., let's go. Unfortunately, that has changed with the emergence of social media. Now, the story breaks on social media at any time, could even be 1 a.m. There was a time when we were telling ourselves, don't post anything if it's not at 9 a.m. in the morning or 11 a.m. If you're going to risk it, try 3 p.m., but no other time. Now, the biggest stories could break even at 2 a.m. And by the time you wake up, everyone is having a conversation about it, and you have no idea what it is. Now, the story starts on social media and we go to the TV stations for authenticity of that story. Because, oh, this guy got an accident and he's dead and he's popular. Oh my goodness, everyone is going to discuss that. But we're still going to come to the TV bulletin and hear, oh, so what had happened? Where was he? What is his father saying? What is this other person saying? TV still has that strength. but the times have changed. So you, as a person who's tuned into this today, you have a lot of power to shape that narrative. Can you show these people that this is what you are interested in? Can you be a little more responsible about what you're interested in and putting it out there? And also going the extra mile. These people are creating a lot of content. If you go to YouTube, you will know how to open a YouTube channel, how to do whatever, how to ensure that your tweet trends or something like that. Can we learn as much digital as possible that there is? Because and I like that Sunday is also saying that he's no longer that guy that is on a social media platform and taking 10 years without posting or something like that. These ideas, I mean, if you're tuned into Wake Up Africa, you're probably the right person that we need to start this movement, to start this conversation. Could we learn how to effectively tell that story? You know, we are out of the era where you need a professional camera. I mean, today I'm only seated in the car because my little daughters were going to be waking up in the middle of this and make a lot of noise and all of that. So I ran away to the car. But what do I have? I'm not even wearing a microphone. It's just my phone that I have put on a phone holder in my car, and we've had a full conversation right here. We are having a conversation. I'm in Kampala. I'm sure Sunday is in is in Nairobi. Austin is in Dar. Alan is also in Kampala, but not with me. But we're having a conversation right now. So it's not expensive to have the conversations that we need to have. Are you having them? Or are you going to sit down and wait for someone else to have it? Guess what? Someone else is also waiting for someone else to have that conversation. So all of us are waiting for the next person. And the moment someone from the Western world asks us, Africa, we never do anything. Yeah, you never do anything. So it starts with you. I'm going to say that, and not because you're the one who will become that BBC of Africa, no, but the moment many of us are having these conversations, we will shape the narrative for those that have the ability to form the BBC and CNN and whatever of Africa to actually move on it, because guess what? Everyone will know that these Africans are actually interested in this thing and they're invested in this thing. And then it's us that will start consuming the content that matters and all of that. I have been, trying to get into that space for quite a while. Recently started a YouTube channel, and I was talking about my beloved Chelsea and all of that. Because, hey, I think there are so many Chelsea fans in the world and all of that. But after a few months, I just found myself, because it's a lot of work putting that daily video out and all. And I was wondering, what's my purpose in doing this thing? So yes, I've talked about Chelsea, and then what? I'm relying on information that I'm reading on the internet to put this video out there about Chelsea. And everyone else is also doing it. So what am I chasing? The numbers. And the numbers, yeah, they were growing, but they didn't feel very important. So I kind of quit. I fell off and I stopped doing it because it was too much energy for something that was not that impactful in my books. And recently I realized something. So yes, I'll be back on that. And I'm going to be doing content to do with, again, like I said earlier, I'm very passionate about sport. And I'm, looking at not being just the fan. How do I contribute and to the fraternity and all? So recently I started a diploma in sports management, and I realized, the Uganda Olympic Committee has all of these kinds of things going on, but they are not out there. So yeah, I'm starting my podcast soon, where I will just be, not just, if I use the word just, it makes it look like it's something so small. I don't want it to feel small. So yes, where I'll be speaking to just sports leaders, really, across the divide. What are your challenges? Where can we go? And even from this conversation, I realize, forget about the scandals. Yes, they are huge and everything, but can we focus on the lessons we learned from those scandals? How did we get out of it? How did we get into the scandal in the first place? But how did we get out of it? How can we adapt those things that we see in the West to, fulfill the Ugandan story and all of that? So yes, that's my purpose. Can it be yours as well in a different field? I'll be doing that for sport. Can you do it for the environment? Can someone else do it for, mental health and all of that? But it's not enough for you to say, this is what I think about this thing that I want to talk about. It's also trying to find out the people that are consuming general content. Don't just focus on the people who are focused on your sport. Focus on the wider picture. What are they looking for? Or do they love challenges and all? So maybe my guest on the show should start with a challenge. How do I bring this story that I want to introduce to the people, to those people, without forcing them and castigating them for not paying attention to what I'm so passionate about? We could go on and on and on, but who speaks for Africa? For now, it is you, as you try your very best to now influence those that have the bigger platforms to follow you and have the conversations that you want them to get to have. Other than that, yes, I am on social media. I am quite active. Yes, and I am at Dimugomisa on all platforms. So hey, let's continue these conversations over there as we look forward to that event that Austin has sponsored already. And Allen and I go out to look for more partners and make happen.
Mugumisa, thank you so much. And make sure on that event that Sunday is coming to talk, you do the curtain raiser. Sunday does his best, is giving us the tea now, Kericho Gold. And is also showing you the other one. But, well, again, it's showing that he will bring all the teas.
Yes, there's Kenyan tea coming, there's Tanzanian tea coming, and there's going to be Rwandan and Ethiopian tea being delivered. This Tanzanian as well saying thank you.
And if I happen, there is some Ugandan products that you guys can also enjoy and compare and contrast. At least let them be seen, let them be tested.
And if I just say this, Austin, there, I will bring the best cashew nuts in the country that we have.
There we go. If I can just say one thing, Austin, the reason why I'm joking a lot about tea was I replaced my addiction to alcohol and my addiction to soda and fizzy drinks by cross-addicting to tea. So that's the hidden meaning behind it. Because I had an underlying condition called ADHD, which means my dopamine levels go really low. I used to take 5-6 sodas a day, not realizing why, but it always uplifted my mood. So in therapy, I got to understand that, well, the soda addiction and the alcohol addiction were ways for me to feel better about myself. It sounds quite simplistic, but consuming that much sugar affected my sleep, affected my teeth, and is not healthy, right? So I had to find something else. So I take about 5-6 cups of tea a day when I feel that craving. And it's taken about 3 years to get into it. But the actual thing is just what you associate how you feel at that moment in time. People are addicted to all sorts of things. So for me, when I bring this stuff and I give it to you guys as a gift, the underlying meaning to it is you can cross addict to something else that is healthier. That's the whole point. But of course, that rivalry of who has the best tea, that is how Africans will sell Africa. Thank you.
Well, buy Africa, support Africa. Thank you so much, Sunday. Thank you so much, Mugumisa. Allen Sobedia, thank you so much. You brought such a resource onto Wake Up Africa this morning. It's unfortunate that my brother Deodatus could not join us this morning. I know he had mentioned about church responsibilities this morning, but is a professional career journalist determined to transform journalism profession in Tanzania and beyond. He has over 30 years of work experience. He's held multiple posts in media fraternity, from cub reporter to managing editor. And right now, as we speak, is the president of Eastern Africa's Editors Society, chairperson of Tanzania Editors Forum, championing freedom of press, freedom of expression, and access to information right in the country, East Africa community, and beyond. We'll probably find some other time to pick this discussion with him next. But for me, really, to thank you. And in my conclusion, Africa media should continue to actively rewrite the Africa's narrative, moving beyond the dominant, often negative stereotypes, and showcase the continent's diverse experiences, strength, and potential. This shift in narrative is crucial for fostering a more accurate and positive understanding of Africa empowering African voices, as well as promoting relationships, partnerships, and investments. Up until next Saturday on Wake Up Africa, this is really to thank you all my viewers and contributors. Thank you so much. See you again next Saturday.